If you're a first-time buyer in the UK right now, you may be looking at YouTube as a resource to help you understand the steps that you need to take to acquire your deposit, get your mortgage agreed in principle. And I wouldn't blame you if you looked at YouTube now and you felt discouraged, because at the moment there are a lot of videos having this conversation debating whether you should buy or rent. I want to talk about that today because a lot of those creators are American creators. The property home buying journey in the States works differently. There may be some similarities, but it's different. It's not the same as what we are facing here in the UK. And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about it from a UK point of view, but I also want to add the perspective from a financial planning angle, because I think there is a really important thing that is being missed in this conversation that is very pertinent to the UK specifically. Ramit Sethi is probably one of the biggest guys who at the moment is talking about this idea of you should really consider whether you should buy or rent. And he talks about, it could be a really, really big mistake. This is him on Diary of a CEO making that case specifically.
Owning can be a good financial decision, but it also can be a very bad financial decision. In fact, I rent by choice. And living in New York, for example, I lived here for a long time. I knew that if I were to buy, I would be losing thousands of dollars every single month because it actually costs more than twice as much to own than to rent. But can you imagine the type of pressures even I got from people who would come over and say, "Oh, so do you own this place?" The place that I was renting. I said, "No, I rent." And there was this visible moment of confusion. They're shaking my hand. They know that I'm the "I will teach you to be rich" guy, but I rent. How can you be teaching money, but you rent? Isn't renting for losers? And I have to say, because I was rock solid confident in my decision, that pressure did not affect me.
And I wouldn't normally be bringing up an American creator. I like Ramit, I like his book, I've got his book, and his Netflix program was amazing. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I had a meeting with someone last week for a coaching call who asked me this question. I've been following Ramit and he's talking about renting rather than buying. What do you think? And this is the reason for this video. One of the things that I want to point out, which is probably obvious, but needs to be stated nonetheless, is the fact that whenever you are trying to make a decision like this, it's very important that you are mindful of the people that you listen to. And personal circumstances have a huge impact on the decision that you make. So for example, with Ramit, he is a multimillionaire, okay, by his own admission. He has very different problems. He can afford to rent because his income will be probably quite high. He probably has quite a nice cash reserve that affords him the ability to buy somewhere if he had to. Now, you're a normal person. You're struggling to get your deposit. You're fighting to get your deposit together. You may not necessarily have the financial resources or the high income that someone like Ramit has. And this is why sometimes it's really important to make sure that you are considering what the tax brackets of the people that you're listening to are. Because frankly, when you have a lot of money, your concerns are very, very different to ordinary people. Renting a house is probably one of the last things, is the least of your worries, right? But you have resources that afford you the ability to have a freedom of choice and a multitude of choices as well. Ordinary people don't necessarily have that. And I think that's a really important point to make. On this channel, we've harped on so much about the fact that state pension is being recommended to be pushed back to age 71. People are not saving anywhere near enough into their pension. And so when you think about owning property, and this is from my experience as an advisor and working with financial advisors, planning for people, the biggest asset people have after their pension, or before their pension actually, in fact, in most of the cases, is their home. The home that they live in, that they pay off the mortgage for and own by the time they get to retirement. And this asset in their residential home is what gives them the financial options to be able to sell, downsize, release equity that effectively funds retirement. And I don't think that this should be understated, particularly for the UK. We do have issues. We do have concerns over the state pension. The state pension might be means tested. It may not even be around, we don't know. So why be reliant on that? And if your residential home, the house that you live in, that you raise your family in, becomes your biggest asset, would you rather have that as an asset that you could use for income? Or would you rather be at the mercy of rent increases and landlords when you get to retirement age. This is a really big point, and on Instagram, I'm seeing this come through in the comments as well. Whenever we have this conversation, property investors then get involved in this conversation, and I think they really confuse the angle that we're coming at. We're not talking about property as an investment, and this is really important to know. We're not talking about HMOs, BRRR, whatever strategies. We're talking about the home that you live in. The biggest argument that I get from people is, well, it's a liability, not an asset. I hate that narrative. It's very Robert Kiyosaki, old man, old school thinking. Your house is an asset because it appreciates in value. It can be a liability as well. So if you wanted to split hairs, it's an asset and it's a liability, but it is most definitely an asset. And the other argument that people often talk about is, well, the upkeep of property. It's going to cost you a load of money to be able to get on the property ladder to maintain the home. Well, people buy cars every day. That is a depreciating asset. You put fuel in it, you tax it, you MOT it, you insure it. It is a money pit. So why is there this expectation that you can acquire a property and it's not going to require you to spend any money in its upkeep? I mean, it's nonsensical to me. And it really does depend on what you're looking to buy as a first-time buyer. If you're looking to buy one of the old houses with a thatched roof, then yes, you need to ask questions. Yes, those things are likely going to cost you a lot of money, but that's now a choice. If you buy a new build, which has better energy efficiency, guarantees with the boiler and the electrics and all this kind of stuff, some of them up to 10 years, where's the running cost exactly? And I'm not saying it's not going to cost you any money in the long term, it will, but it should come with the territory. It shouldn't be a reason not to buy your property that you're going to live in and possibly raise a family in. On social media, again, you've got to be careful of who you listen to. And I'm going to put myself in the same box here. Be careful, take what I talk about with a pinch of salt. But there are lots of creators on Instagram, on YouTube, who are not on the property ladder, who will talk about getting on the property ladder, who haven't even done it themselves, people who perhaps don't even believe that it is possible for them, and therefore via their content they project that it shouldn't be possible for you. And what they're forgetting is that everybody's journey is different. Everyone has a different path. And that isn't to say that everyone's going to be able to buy the property, because the world doesn't work like that, but you have control and influence over whether or not you can. And that's going to depend on a ton of variables: skill set, your occupation, your earning potential, so on and so forth. But you have control over a large element of that. So please be careful who you actually listen to. And this is the most important thing, right? It's understanding and having the tools to discern. Whenever you pick up any video, including mine, what things might be applicable to you, what things might not, and you throw the things that aren't away and you implement the things that are. We have to be really discerning in social media age. The last thing I want to end on here is just making the point, and this is really important, and frankly, people don't care about this stuff, and they really, really should. If you decide that renting is going to be the best solution for you, and there will be instances where people feel that it is the best instance for them, maybe not the most optimal, we can debate that. It is really important you get a grasp of your financial habits and your behavioral drivers in terms of how you make financial decisions. The reason for that is because if you are going to rent, you need to have a stringent plan on how you're going to invest money to give you a pot of money that may be equivalent or greater than the value of the property that you would have acquired had you been paying down a mortgage that entire time. And again, this is the boring stuff. I talk about this in my book, how the money base is how to become your own financial hero. This is the stuff that has changed my life, but people are not concerned about it. And it's easier said than done, saying, I'm just gonna have a plan where I'm gonna invest money. People get busy with life, careers, business, all kinds of things. It falls by the wayside. And then one day you wake up, you realize that you've wasted 10 years and you actually don't have any assets at all that could fund you later on in life. I mean, this is the stuff we need to be taught as kids, that we're having conversations about as adults. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Would you rather buy versus rent your residential property? We're not talking about property investments. There it is. All right, catch you later on. Cheers.